Hey, we're in the studio today talking about blended families, and Tracy's off camera leading this discussion.
Hello. Can anybody hear me?
Thanks for having us.
Okay, so really, today we're talking about underlying issues. We want to start with that. So you guys answer this question. What about loyalty? How has that been an underlying issue in a blended family?
Well, I think first of all, like when I met Ross, the girls were 2 and 4. And so here's a stranger that's kind of entering their world. And so, they don't really know who you are. And you have to earn their loyalty. You have to get to know them and earn their trust so that they start to feel like, that you're a family. I don't know. Do you want to add to that?
No, I think you're spot on. And it's hard because from the child's perspective, you're taking on two different challenges. And what I mean by that is you were taking the place of mom, of their mom. So that's a challenge in and of itself. But then you're also taking my attention away. Mm-hmm. And so there's another challenge that they're facing because, I've had dad all to myself, and now this person comes into the role. And so those are challenging situations, but you gotta be open and honest with each other. So.
Yeah, I think for us, Heather had been a single mom for 14 years. And so her and Madison's relationship was very, very strong, very tight. And so as I came into the picture, building a relationship with Madison was really, really important. But also I would take time away from Madison with Heather. And I had to be intentional about spending time specifically with Madison to build that relationship. But it took time.
Yep.
For sure.
A lot of time. And I think one of the most humbling conversations we had was Madison was very honest with both of us, saying, I feel like you took my mom away, Zach. And that was hard. But for us to hear her saying that and to acknowledge it and to make changes, I think helped mitigate that a lot.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk for a few minutes about insiders and outsiders? Mm-hmm. Whoever felt like they were on the inside or on the outside?
I'm sure both of you guys felt that way.
Yeah, I think, again, it comes back to the fact that, Heather was a single mom for 14 years. And in the same regard, her relationship with her mom was very, very strong. And so they had created a family. They had created a cohesive unit. They had created traditions with holidays and where they traveled and everything. And as I came into that situation, I felt like an outsider, and I had to communicate that to Heather so that we could A, make sure I didn't feel like an outsider, and so B, that they would be open to things changing.
That's a great point.
Did you feel like an outsider?
Well, yeah, for sure you do. You walk in and there's the routine and the kids already have their family and know everybody, and here's this stranger that comes in, like, who are you? And you're kind of changing everything. I think because the girls were so much younger, it was probably a little bit of an easier transition. But and at 2 and 4, you can make things a lot of fun, and so they think you're cool for a while. But definitely, I felt like an outsider. It takes time, and you've got to be willing to, just have patience and be willing to, continue to press forward. And
well, I think both of you said, you have to be on the same page as a couple. So you've got to be intentional in setting the boundaries and being on the same page moving forward in front of the kids. I think that's important. And it sounds like, we certainly did that. It sounds like Zach and Heather did that as well. So that is a big one.
And there was a component of trial and error. There were things that we did that obviously did not work, and it was very apparent. So we had to adjust the strategy and go a different direction. You got to get into a groove as a family, and it just takes time.
So this is a good transition, you guys, to talk about some of the tips, some practical advice that you guys would have. You mentioned a second ago the blueprint for your family. How did you guys get on the same page with how you were going to run your family?
I think discipline was a huge thing. I think going into as well to make sure that if there was an issue, that Ross was more of the disciplinarian at that stage, so that because I was a new person, I wasn't the bad guy. he would take charge on that until, again, I think that also brings back the loyalty issue where they knew once where I was established in the family, then I had more of I felt like I could do more as far as discipline. So I think that was one big thing. I think also, even if we had issues on our parenting, the way we were parenting, that we tried to be very respectful and not argue about it or question each other in front of the children,
Yeah.
but behind closed doors, and then
For
try
sure.
and figure out how to adjust.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, and for us, we've had to get on the same page prior to implementing discipline, right? Because I had my way of disciplining and things that were important to me, and Zach brought a whole new perspective in things that I was really missing, and then things that were important to our family. So we kind of set the ground rules of what that looked like, what our expectations were, communicated that to Madison, and then trial and error, what we really can follow through on, and what's working and what's not.
Yeah, and I think one thing that you mentioned that's important, if you two get on the same page, or we do, but then we don't, depends on the age of your child, obviously, but if you don't communicate that change to your child, it's going to come out of left field, and they're going to think it's totally foreign.
Yeah.
So communicating what's going to change moving forward and having clear expectations.
Why don't you guys speak for a second? What's the difference between a crock pot approach versus a blender approach to your blended family?
I think making it happen, not making it happen, waiting for it to happen, not waiting. Sorry, happening slow
Yeah.
and authentically and
Yeah.
organically. I don't think you can just expect the change to happen at once.
Yep.
It's,
Well, you've said it over and over, trial and error, and we all go through that trial and error. And so it's not going to, the day we set our vows and walked out or got back from the honeymoon, it was all, hunky-dory, and everyone understood every position and so I like the analogy of the crock pot versus the blender, because you're putting things together, but it's going to take time, and there will be puts and takes as you go through it a lot. So,
And the thing I think that's similar about that that concept is that when you take a blender, you can throw whatever you want, and it changes its form. It changes what it is. In a crock pot, the carrot is still the carrot in the end. The roast beef is still the roast beef. It's just all seasoned together, and it's better. So you're not changing the form of the individual or the form of the family. You're just bringing it together, simmering a little bit, and making it taste a little better.
now I'm hungry.
really
Thanks, Zach. I'm hungry.
might feel like a blender at times.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
A little chaos.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Or a blender without a top on it. Right?
Things are going everywhere.
Looks a
yeah,
little messy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so the last tip, why is it a bad idea to badmouth the ex or the other parent?
I mean, at the end of the day, the kids, their parents are still like the number one for them. And so they did not make the decision for mom and dad to split. At the end, kids want their parents to be together. So when they're, put in a situation with blended families, the kids should always be put first, and they should never have to hear anything negative about the other parent.
Yeah, I've always, Marlene has always been great about that. And there are going to be differences and arguments and things I've certainly had with my ex. And she was always really good about, hey, not in front of the kids. If we have an issue, let's talk about. And the other thing, what I really appreciated about Mar, which I think was a difficult role to play, is oftentimes she would take the side of my ex just so I'd see a different perspective. Like, Ross, hold on and look at it from this side. I'm like, no, I don't want to look at it from that side. I want to look at it from this side, my side. And she was always very good about having me open up and look at it from a different perspective. But certainly going back to Tracy's point, just absolutely not in front of the children. I mean, they're the parents always. So.
Good.
And that's admirable, honestly. I think our situation's a little bit unique because we don't have that other half. But I do try and put myself in that shoes. I can't imagine how that would feel. I can't imagine having your kids go to the ex's house and having different rules, different discipline, different expectations, and then coming home and having to regroup, retrain, get back on track.
And I think it still does apply in our situation, because if you and I are communicating different things to our daughter, then she A, gets confused, and B, being that she's a 15-year-old girl, has the ability to manipulate the situation, right? If I have one stance on a situation, you have a different stance, she can kind of choose which one she wants that fits where she wants to go. So if you and I are arguing about something in front of her and we're not on the same page, it really, there's a lack of consistency there that she sees, and I think it can confuse her, but also give her a window to slip through, you know.
That's a very good point.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us today. We hope that the tips that we shared and the stories that we shared about our crazy families were helpful to you. Use the questions below to talk about it with your small group, with your mentor, and with your spouse.